The topic for the panel discussion at today's midterm webinar is Challenges and Opportunities in Creating Inclusive Tourism. We are very happy to have with us Seng as the moderator of today's panel. Seng is Professor of Cultural and Heritage Tourism at the University of Tasmania and a member of TiMS Advisory Board. We are also delighted to have 4 excellent panelists with us today, namely Åsa Egrelius from Visit Sweden, Heléne Östberg from Tourism in Skåne, Katarina Thorstensson from Gothenburg & Co, and Anna Cederberg Gerdrup from Gerdrup & Company AB. The 4 of them represent different interesting perspectives based on their work on national, regional, and local levels with tourism in Sweden.
Tonight's session is on inclusive tourism, and Professor Diane Dredge has already given us an interesting perspective, one that is that takes on a particular personal angle in which we actually reflect and think about whether we feel included or not. And then that's actually one of the most important things when we travel, is to feel that we feel comfortable and we don't feel anxious. Fortunately for us today, we have 4 panelists who have a wealth of experiences, and I'm going to ask them 3 questions, and you will probably get, and to frame it, I'll give a little context of my own understanding of inclusive tourism and building on what Diane has already said. All right. One of the most common view of understanding inclusive tourism is to include tourists with different backgrounds and allowing them to travel. So for example, people with disability, people with different ethnic backgrounds that may actually can find barriers in coming to a particular destination, or creating opportunities for people who do not really get the opportunity to travel. So for example, you have Brexit and the Brits have left the EU, all right, but the EU has this fantastic program of exchange program, getting people to visit Europe and learning from each other. That in many ways, I would consider that very much part of inclusive tourism, bringing people from less developed places to understand Europe. So we can talk about inclusive tourism from the perspective of the tourists. And I think we can also talk about inclusive tourism from the host society. So Diane has already talked about the environment. And I know about the TiMS project, one of the most exciting projects in the whole universe, I would argue. Right? It is to look at how the multicultural fabric of Sweden, right? It's something that people do not think very much about. Many people in society, in any community, all right, do not feel that tourism is part of their society. And as a result, they never consider themselves as stakeholders. So they do not participate at the table. 2, they are not invited. And I think there are also other issues involved. For example, there are barriers, like they don't have time resources, they do not know what to do, even though they want to contribute to the community, to the industry, they can't be included. And another one that I know what is going to, the discussion here, all right, a perspective that will actually bridge these 2 is very exciting today, is how about getting tourists to make them into local participants, including them in the local society. So I think that opens up another set of dynamics. And I hope, I do believe that our 4 panelists today are going to actually provide us with some interesting insights. Emma and Sayaka, if you can just monitor the chat and just signal to me when there are people who have questions, I'll pass it back up to you. So the first question I'm going to pose is, okay, what are the key challenges to inclusive tourism, right? So the first person, but I think before I go into that, I realized that we have not introduced the panelists. I'm very, very sorry about that. I think I'm quite rude. I'm not doing a very good job. But I think I guess the best way to do it is to allow the panelists themselves to just introduce themselves for 30 seconds, and then we'll go into the questions. Okay. All right. So from my screen, I'll just start from my screen. It is Anna. Anna, would you want to tell us something about yourself?
Yes, good evening and good morning. My name is Anna Cederberg Gerdrup. I am a communication consultant in my own company. So I'm not representing the academic world or the tourism industry. I wrote this book. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, it's you can see it, yeah. I wrote this book from Domsöcake to Maklova in Bergsjön. It's about a journey I did when I was a tourist in my own city. I traveled first by ferry and then by tram from Domsö in the South Archipelago, Gothenburg. Domsö is a small island. And then I got through Gothenburg to the suburb Bergsjön in the northeast of Gothenburg. And through this journey, I interviewed Gothenburgers with different cultural backgrounds about their lives and the food tradition. And in connection to each chapter, there's also food recipes if the readers wanted to cook. So, well, why did I wrote this book? Well, my starting point was that I wanted to focus on the positive things with the multicultural society via food. You can say that I used food as a cultural bridge. And I also wanted to invite the readers to explore and visit neighborhoods they haven't been to before. Gothenburg is a very segregated city, and the suburbans mostly are immigrants and new Swedes. They very seldom meet people from strong socioeconomic areas. The book has progressed with the different activities, such as food cultural trips to different places and persons in the book. I will get back to that when we are going to give some examples. And the food cultural trips was also my vision, that I wanted Gothenburgers with different cultural backgrounds to meet, eat and talk. Yes, very briefly.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anna. Heléne?
Yeah, hello everyone. Good morning and good evening. I'm from Skåne, the region in the southernmost part of Sweden. I work as the marketing brand and innovation manager. I was before the marketing director of tourism in Skåne, and my title changed when we changed strategy. So we did a new strategy for Skåne for the next coming 10 years, and really went from Skåne being the most visited place in Sweden, except for Stockholm maybe, to Skåne, where tourism matters, it's a completely different take on it, and I feel very home in this seminar with the new strategy we have. So then I have the responsibility for our brand, but also for the innovation, and where social innovation actually is a big part in our coming work. So that's me.
Thank you, Heléne. Katarina?
Hello, everyone. My name is Katarina, and I'm the head of sustainability at Gothenburg & Co. And Gothenburg & Co. is the city destination management, marketing, development organization. And we are a city-owned company with the mission to get more people to discover and choose Gothenburg, and also to contribute in building a better Gothenburg for those who live here, those who work here, and those who visit. I myself personally, actually I'm born and bred in Skåne, and I started my tourism career in a rural context, and now I've been working the last 20 years in an urban context. Yeah, and I'm sort of trying to push my colleagues within our company to move forward on inclusiveness and environmental issues and sort of moving forward. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Åsa. I'm a senior public affairs strategist at Visit Sweden, which is the NTO. We have been in charge of the international marketing for like 25 years in Sweden. And from this year, we have the assignment at also market Sweden as a brand for the domestic tourists. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'll start the first question is, what are the challenges, to inclusive tourism? I think we all have different interpretations. So I'd like to start off with that question. Katarina, would you like to, how do you actually see the challenges of inclusive tourism?
It is, first I'd like to say you can turn every challenge into an opportunity. So that's sort of my starting point. But I think that a huge challenge is to actually know what is inclusive tourism and who is included and who is excluded, and what do you want to and need to achieve. It can be really overwhelming for a practitioner, definitely. So I think that's a huge challenge to actually know the problem and to sort of break this down into pieces and define. So I think all these different perspective, it is really complex, the issue. So sort of breaking it down and see within your own context what is the main challenge and where to start the work and knowledge as well. So there are quite a few challenges, I dare say. Yeah, I'll leave it to that now and talk to my panelists.
Okay, thank you very much. Heléne, you work in Skåne, and Katarina just saying that we need to select and be aware of challenges. I mean, there will be countless challenges. We have to be selective in some ways to make it workable. So what's your perspective? What are the challenges that tourism in Skåne face?
Well, there are quite a lot of challenges actually, but now we have the big trends, the big global trends helping us getting forward. But I think one challenge is that mass tourism, or that what tourism was or has been for the last centuries, when it comes to everyone going to the same place. Volume is a very big thing in tourism, and that creates like a wall between tourists and the local society, I believe, and it's also inflicting a lot of the local society. You have mass tourism, you have like the unwelcoming part of tourism because tourists don't behave. So I think that image of tourism, and in Skåne we have some places that are very popular among tourists. We don't have the big icons or the big flagships, but we have some parts and regions that are very attractive, and everyone wants to go to the most attractive spot at the same time when they have holiday, and that is kind of where you get these conflicts between the local society and the tourists. And then tourism is something that is the necessary evil to get money or to get in tax money, and I think that is some kind of like the human where the biggest challenge is. And also we have worked, like I've been working like 10 years almost in this profession, and where we have tried to say, hello, we are a big business here, we create a lot of tax money, like we have made ourselves into a business that is about creating money. and not being contributing to the society as we want to be now. So I think that like the history of tourism from the past is a big challenge for us to get over, like to show what tourism really can do for society if we do it right. So maybe that's the biggest challenge, I think. And also, as I said, like when you talk to, like if you wanted to create an inclusive tourism in kind of like the ethnical part of it, is also the matters, as you've seen, like when we talk about the Chinese travelers, for example, people think about Venice, what they have seen there, like thousands and thousands of tourists, and they are like, no, we don't want that here. So it's also about picking tourists. It's like a very elitist way of looking at who you want to have as a visitor. We want the wealthy, healthy, older people who can behave, but we don't want the biggest child. Like that. That's not a ground for inclusive tourism. Like when you welcome some people and not other people. So how can you really build tourism back to being a more, like for the local hoods that like welcome, you contribute. We want to learn, you like to teach you something about our society, and we want to show our society, and we are proud of what we got here and stuff like that. That's not really the case right now. That's a challenge.
Well, thank you very much, Heléne. I guess one of the issues is, I mean, many people criticize mass tourism, but at the same time, we can argue that mass tourism is inclusive because it makes it possible for many people to travel. We can then argue, which we have the flight shame movement starting from your beautiful country in Sweden. All right, then the issue is maybe you should actually travel less. Then that will become less inclusive. And I think there are certain contradictions that are involved in which people just want, as you pointed out, Heléne, is which type of tourists do we want, which type of tourists we do not want. And we only want the high yielding one, which pay a lot of money. And that is actually far from being inclusive. We start treating tourists as if they are just cash cows. And so I think that's what the next question is about. All right, is how do you actually work with inclusive tourism, because it is complex, right? So I'll go to Åsa. You work with Visit Sweden. All right, Sweden is a liberal, progressive country that's open-minded, open-hearted. How inclusive are you guys? How do you work with that?
It depends on what you're asking. If you're asking for like the marketing perspective, I think where our campaigns are like, okay, everyone can come. The brand of Sweden is the opportunity for everyone to visit. But at the moment, we can see like a shifting for the tourist sector as a whole, I would say, due to the pandemic, that we can see like we have an opportunity to reboot the tourist sector for being more attractive and more inclusive in the local society. As we can see beforehand, tourism was like an industry for not like a second best industry in Sweden, as we have like the iron and all the old companies in Sweden. So tourists was like invited last or least to the table for like developing attractive destinations. And now we can see, for example, like Stockholm have lost 70% of all the income from the tourist sector. That affects a lot of other industries as well, like the restaurants and the hotels and stuff like that. So now we can see, how do we want to evolve the tourist sector for the next 10 upcoming years? And that we can see as a NTO are looking at new target groups, that we could see how do we include the immigrants who actually do work in the industry but don't spend their holidays in Sweden. They go abroad or they go somewhere else, home to their home countries or near to. So how could we include them to feel, I love the word of belonging that Diana spoke about. How could we have an industry that belongs to everyone, both the local community, to the visitors or the travelers? Because I think that in Sweden we've been fairly good at in including the travelers, but not the local society. So how can we build an attractive destination to both live and to visit? So I think that's the discussion now in the rebooting of tourist sector in up to 2021 to 2030.
So you're trying to increase domestic tourism to get Swedes, I say, from the immigrant society to actually travel around the country.
We need to address the whole domestic and foreign questions to the table, and I think we need to see how. I mean, Heléne is perfectly right in doing hotspots, but Sweden is large. It's not like it's crowded. It's just crowded in specific spaces. So we need to, like, I couldn't say spread the tourists, because that's not what we want to do. We want to make them aware of other hotspots or other bucket lists or something like that. So, and bucket lists for new target groups. What's a bucket list for immigrants? It's might not be the same as for the Swedes or the native Swedes, because we've been to those places and we were born. So what could we attract them with, and what could we? How can we make them have the same belongings to the nature or to specific areas?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Åsa. I'll get to Anna, and Anna, I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you work with inclusive tourism in the context that you say you're not from the industry, but you have some great ideas?
Yeah, thank you. Well, as I said before, I more work on the grassroots level, but I will give you two examples from the food cultural trips, which I talked before. And once a month, I invite people to join this cultural food trips. And we go to different destinations in the book, meeting people. And one of the places we go to is Musa's Orient Lives. It's an international market hall with food from different parts of the world. And Yamen, who is a guy who worked there, he is our guide. And we show our travelers different eatables, which actually could be hard to find in the local grocery shops. It could be sweet lemons, cactus fruits, herbs from the Middle East, and so on. And we sometimes I also have actually inviting some young people, refugees from Syria, to ask them if they would join the food culture trips and talk about the life back home in Syria, what they eat for breakfast, when it's dinner or feast or whatever. And so we do this tour in the market hall, and when my travelers leave, they always got this goodie bag with a small present from Musa's, and then we go to a restaurant nearby. And it's so interesting because I heard it so many times from my travelers are people who love to go to New York, they love to go to London, and it's so strange because the suburbs like Brick Lane and Williamsburg are mentally more closed than compared to our own suburbs. So when we say goodbye to each other, they say, "Oh, it's so fantastic! We've been abroad in our city, and of course we will go back and do some shoppings at Gamlestan." And I know that they do. They have started to buy there, and so it's very interesting. And we also I also invite my travelers to visit different cultural associations in the suburb. One is Hammarkullen. There is an association there named The Hope. It's an association for women outside the labor market. You can buy catering from them and help women make a living. And they have a lot of activities. And once we were invited by the founder, Saya, to come home to her. It was not that much participants. And this was during the Ramadan. And she told us about the Ramadan, and we tasted the food you eat when you're breaking the fasting. And it was so interesting to see my travelers experienced this. They didn't know much about the Ramadan, and since then I know that many of them have started to buy catering from the home. So it's just to continue.
Well, those are inspiring stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Katarina, you earlier said that, well, we have to select our issues when we talk about inclusive tourism. And how do you work with inclusive tourism? What do you think of Anna's projects?
First of all, I have to say that I think Anna's project and book is really beautiful, and it really shows how you can learn and experience through, in this case, food, that it doesn't get sort of how do you say it in English, loaded, because these issues can be really hot stuff or hot topics. So I think it's a really, really beautiful project and book, and I'm proud that Anna's done it in Gothenburg as well. So I really enjoy it. But being in a DMO on a local level, we are really hands-on, I dare say, and also since our DMO in our house, we have the opportunity to actually plan and organize events within the city, and we use these public events as sort of change makers, or trying to show possible good solutions, and working with representation, and talking about inclusive tourism or inclusiveness. I would like to say that we have some different concrete examples, and one is, for example, when we try to get international sporting events, for example, to the city. We always try to get part of these events within public spaces, so it's easy for everyone to get a piece of the action without having to buy a ticket to the official arena, for example. That's one way to try to get more inclusive. And about the events, we have for many years worked with the representation on stages, mainly on gender equality. It's our first sort of milestone to show that the music acts, for example, is not only one gender, which has been the case in history. So we have worked sort of in a systematic way with that issue. I would also like to lift the cultural festival where they have presented an Arabic main act on one day, since we have quite a large population of Arab speaking and the Arab community. So having a large popular music act in the public space has been a great success, and really made the festival as a multicultural meeting place. I think that's a good concrete example as well. But still, we have so much to do, and so many possibilities and opportunities. But I think it is a good thing to make these cut it in pieces and make concrete things to make it manageable, and then move forward and forward. So there are some examples.
Thank you very much, Katarina. I see that Emma has reflected on some of the issues, and I think we should ask Emma to just raise them. Right?
Sorry, I just wanted to add something when it comes to arranging these cultural food trips. That's something I do together with the people from the suburbs and the cultural association. So I really want to emphasize that I say to my travelers that we are their guests. So we show them respect. So it's not like I'm inviting them to a human zoo or anything. We are guests in their neighborhoods. Just that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Anna. Okay. Emma,
Can you hear me?
I'm wondering, can you hear me, Emma?
Yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, but the thing was, like, as I wrote, I have a lot of friends that would never visit, for example, Östberg in Skåne. They have never heard of it, and my husband is Kurdish, for example, and his family and his friends, they have never heard of places in Sweden. They have like all those tiny places like Åhus, Yngsjö, like all those that are really tourist places, exactly as Bryne, Donsö, and all those places here in Gothenburg as well. They are so excluded in a way from those places because they don't know how to find them, even if they are available, but they don't have the connection to those places. So I think it's really important to work to how can people go to those places and feel like don't be the outsider, that people are looking at you in a certain way just because you look different, because that also leads to that people don't want to go back, unfortunately. So that was just, yeah.
Thank you very much, Emma. I guess you have
Could I respond to that one?
Yeah.
Yes,
I think in Sweden we have something like a natural outdoor life, like you're born into it, and the driving forces are not the same as going into like the tourist sector. I want to go on a holiday. So I think that the outdoor life has to be more accessible to new Swedes, and we have to present them with equipment so they feel like they're a part of the Swedish nature, and they have the right to freedom to roam as well. So I think that's kind of other question regarding if you talk to tourists, I think we do have the same kind of similar problems that we want to have new offers to new Swedes, but we have to be more informative regarding to how outdoor life could be a part of your ordinary life.
Yeah, and I think that is like when I've worked with children, especially from Angered, and those places, they would never go outside in the woods. They would be like, what, why? And they will be like, they would rather be inside. And I think it's so important to like begin when they are small as well, to just take them out, because when you are outside in the woods, they love it, because then they can get the tools to see what you actually can do outside. But a lot of their parents, my mother-in-law, she's like, now when it's cold, she's like, no, I don't want to go outside, it's too cold, I miss it should be 40 degrees outside. She's like, no, I would never do it. And a lot of her other kids are like that as well. So it's like, how can we get people to appreciate the cold? I'm not sure if that is impossible sometimes, but if you start when they're kids, it would become a bit easier than to learn the older ones. So yeah, but that is like meetings as well.
We have in Skåne we have this hypothesis. We don't know if it's elaborate. We think that tourism can really matters when it comes to this, because we see a big trend of longing for nature. And it's not only new Swedes, it's also the urban Swedes that haven't been in nature, and they're very not feeling safe. And that's a very important thing for people, that they want to be able to feel safe. And there you can have services in nature that are touristic in such, so you can actually experience nature safe with a guide, you can get the knowledge and stuff like that. So that's really a way to bring nature to people that are not experienced with nature, and they don't dare to go out there alone. So that's really a case we are working on right now in Skåne, to see how tourism can really matters when it comes to bringing nature to people who's not experienced.
Nice.
Thank you. We have a couple of comments, and so you can see that we have touched on nerves, and that's excellent. Diane mentioned that. She said that Emma has just made an excellent point. And Ulla, you say you'd like to respond to that. I will let you say something, and then we'll go back to the panel. Right?
Yes, I would like to say that we are working in Vetlefjell and addressing this issue to get people out into nature. And I had some conversations on that. And one point was that it was about communication also, and what words do we use? Because when we write "come out to nature" to us, this person said, yeah, but I see the nature. I know what nature is. This is it. I don't want to get out there. We have to formulate and communicate in a different way also, because everybody sees nature. What is a special? We don't know what is a special. So why should I go out there if somebody writes, come with us out to nature? And so how do we make some places attractive in a different way? Not the way we are. I mean, we have to come out to from our own, how do you say, our own background, maybe. Mm-hmm. It's about communication, I think.
It's not only about communication, it's also about being able to experience nature, for instance, in a safe way. Exactly. We need to be able to feel safe. We need to be able to feel that we belong. That are human like drivers that we have in our brain. So we can't really get out of that. And exactly as you said, like Emma, I think you wrote in a very long comment about that they feel that they are like they stand out because everyone is equal, like everyone is looking the same and being the same people. That's also the case when you get like when people go to New York, like that multicultural. I feel like no one looks the same. Everyone is like different, so everyone can feel belonging there. But if you go to like, I once went to New York and I coincidentally, no, it was a mistake, but I went to Bronx. I didn't feel at all, but I feel very like I didn't. I was not like feeling part of the society. It was like almost a scary event when you actually look like no one else and you like really stick out. So that's also how can you be able to feel safe when you get into somewhere, like if you're a Chinese tourist in Skåne, for instance, you will stick out. But how can we make that like being able to feel comfortable and safe and like welcoming experiences? So I think that is a big issue when it comes to inclusive tourism, because we can't really change the people that travels in Skåne, but we can change how the ones that stick out feels and how they can feel safe and welcomed.
Well, thank you, Heléne. And following from all these comments, I think one of the issues that come up is that when we talk about inclusiveness, we are actually saying that we actually have to overcome a wall, right? Both from the tourist side as well as from the community. The Swedish appreciation of nature is different from many other people. So there can be psychological or cognitive walls that is hard to actually move across. It is very similar. People with disability, they need extra help, and there are barriers, and both parties must be able to actually support each other so that the wall can actually come down. And I think that takes us to the last question that I have is, from your perspective, how can the tourism industry become more inclusive? Anna?
Yes. Well, due to my experience with the food culture trips, I've noticed it's a huge interest for this kind of activities, and you have TV series like Feed Phil. I don't know if you have seen it, but this guy, I think his name is Phil Rosenthal. He's traveling around the world, meeting the locals and eating their foods, and perhaps it could be something for the tourism industry, and also for the domestic tourism industry. Now when things has changed with we can't travel due to the pandemic, and so my suggestion is that perhaps the industry could cooperate with the local cultural associations or also people in the suburbs. I know there are so many people out there in suburbans that they are so proud of their place, and they are so sad when you see all these big black headlines in the morning paper about the shooting, about the crimes, and nothing about all the potential, all the people who wants to make change. So it could be interesting if you come like a tourist to Gothenburg. You go to the amusement parks and museums, do all the traditional, see all the traditional attentions, but you could also meet the locals, take part of how they live their everyday life, eat breakfast together, dinner, or if you have a cooperation with the local culture association, you can take part of their activities. It could be cooking classes, belly dancing, and as a tourist, when you get back, you can say for real that you have visited a multicultural society, and you know how the bread from Samoon bread from Iraq tastes and smell, and also you have tasted perhaps injera from Ethiopia. I think this could be a win-win situation for both for the industry, showing that they take social responsibility, but also, of course, for the associations, the local associations. They need money to finance their operations and activities, and not at least for the people who are visiting Gothenburg. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Anna. Also, do you have a particular vision of how the tourism industry can be more inclusive?
Kind of like the word hospitality industry, because it kind of make us stand a bit above it all, because it's about hospitality. I love the word Diana says, belonging, but sometimes we can also be exotic by travel. So I think about the word caring. About caring as a traveler. I have to care about the place I'm visiting, and also about the place that I'm providing for the guests. How can I care for the guests who's coming in, or the travelers, and if you have the mindset of being a guest or inviting a guest to a party, you want to feel that guest being met in a positive way, and also you don't let the guest behave in certain ways, then they're not going to be a guest on the next party. So I think that the caring word it's like you have to highlight it. It's both for the visiting and for the society. And if you are a caring if you are in a caring environment, you also want to have the staff in the party feeling great, because you want to have them serving at the next party. So I would say caring it's a word that the hospitality needs to like highlight for next.
Thank you, Åsa. I think Diane Dredd, she has made a comment, which I think is quite closely related to what you have just made. Diane, would you like to jump in? All right, you're muted, Diane.
Sorry. Just reflecting on the pattern, the kind of connecting the dots between everybody's comments, it comes down, in my mind at least, to transformational visitor experiences, ones that connect us not only to the place, but to different kinds of people that we wouldn't ordinarily meet. And those meetings transform us in some way. They change our values, they change our understanding of a community. And, the two examples that I thought about were actually Tikatut, Ulla, and Gernstemme in Copenhagen, that really offer experiences that make us understand communities that we would never normally come in contact with. So that's very much about inclusion, I think.
Thank you very much, Diane. Heléne, do you have some vision for a more inclusive tourism industry?
Yeah, I mean, Åsa was talking about hospitality and how you want a guest to behave on a party, but I think it's also a lot about guest vitality. I asked my daughter, who was then 10 years old, like, what do you think? What is like, how can we develop this part for tourists? And she was like, yeah, you can't market it too much because then we have too many tourists at once. And I don't think that they should go to the beaches because then it's too crowded on the beaches. Like that was a kid perspective on it. But what she was saying was like balance tourism, work with the guest vitality. Like what is the responsible of the guests? So because you can't force the locals to be inclusive if the visitors are not behaving very nice or like wanting to change it too much. So that's one part, like the guest vitality, the balanced tourism, and also about the supply. Because why do people travel? They want to learn, they want to experience, they want to be transformed. But if we have a supply that doesn't do that, like then they will go on a speed sightseeing bus tours and be mass tourism, overcrowded places and stuff like that. So it's also about supplying the kind of experience that Anna has been doing there, because it's or nature or whatever, but it's about a supply that also like connects with why people really travel. So so that's something that we should be working on, because the other supply, you know, the money making, the cash cow things, that is already there. We don't need to do that. We need to create another supply of experiences. And I was thinking, just an idea to Åsa from Visit Sweden, when you go into the domestic market, why not going to the exotic domestic market? That's not like marketing Sweden for sweets, but the other cultures that we have in Sweden. So I think that's a perfect match. Like we can experience the world here in Sweden. I mean, that's a perfect, because I think that you're curious and you want to learn, but you don't feel safe because of the black headlines, you know. You don't feel safe going into Rosengård in Malmö if you're like an ordinary Sweden, like, hi, I want to know something about your culture. But if you have like the touristic, like the safe thing, like the way when you can learn, I think you also have a demand for that kind of experiences. So yeah, that's my vision anyway.
Thank you very much, Heléne. I realize that time is running out. All four of you are experts, and before we close this discussion, do you have anything to add? I mean, your reflections, what you have learned from each other?
I have a reflection on what Diane said about nature being a stakeholder. We have to take that seriously. We have to, because that is like nature has to survive. Like we can't be really like everyone has a right to roam here. Like we have to protect nature because that's really what is at stake here in the world. Like we have a mass extinction going on. So we have to have tourism, but on terms, on nature terms, and we need to limit and keep the nature safe. So that's my reflection on that.
Thank you, Heléne. Right.
Can I just
Anna, do you have any reflections?
No, but I just want to say that the World Foods is only some stops away. So fantastic that you can travel in your own Gothenburg, in your own city like Gothenburg.
Thank you. Katarina.
Yeah, this has been a really interesting discussion, and my mind is sort of, it's running around up there. But I think that it is really clear both that our industry or tourism is in one way a reflection of society, and Diane was on to we need systems changes. And I do believe also that tourism can be a change maker since we are quite visible. I think we are an important part in the development of societies, and we have to work on different levels with all stakeholders. We have to work with the policymakers. We have to work with the citizens. We have to work with the travelers and everyone's that are involved. So there's a reciprocity, and when it comes to the citizens, we also have to teach or communicate the value of the guests and the visitors, and the other way around. So we are in a complicated system, but it's really intriguing and inspiring to work, because I do think we can be a change maker in a positive way.
Thank you very much, Katarina. And Åsa.
I think Katarina was on to something really interesting. I think the society is changing. We are in a massive change. It's not all the tourist sector, it's all the industries are changing. So we have like a momentum. How do we want to evolve ourselves, and how do we want to make the cities and the environment attractive for not just for us being here now, but for the next upcoming generations. So, and I think the tourist sector has, if you see the place from a tourist perspective, you might see the attraction from a different kind of way. So we have an opportunity to take a huge part of this this new coming environmental city building, or what we now will call it the next coming years, that we are trying to reboot, or to reboot ourselves after the pandemic. So I think that the tourist sector are in the right place at the moment, but we have to take a part of this new society and raise our hands and say, okay, this is attractive, this is how we want to change it, and this is how we want to change it together with others.
Well, thank you very much. I'll just mention a couple of reflections that I have. A bit we started off by discussing about inclusive tourism, and at the end we are actually talking a lot about responsible tourism. We're also talking about using tourism resources for community development, of developing the society. And I think that is precisely the point that Professor Diane Dresch was actually talking about. I mean, we are also interconnected, and that it is so important to have this feeling of belongingness, not only for the tourists, but also for us, and to make people feel belonged. And I think you have brought the issue about care and helping others. And I think that is also your attitude, your approach, the Swedish way of doing things. It is one that is so well respected around the world. It's because it's so broad-minded, so warm-hearted. So I wish I will visit you very soon. I'm stuck in Australia, but I definitely hope that I'll see you soon. So on that note, I'll pass it back to Emma and Sayaka. But thank you very much, Anna, Heléne, Katarina, and Åsa.